So today we're going to focus on testing basics. So that would be, what is testing and what is software testing? And also we're going to look into, certain tools that are used in testing and the documentations that are used in testing and so on. So tomorrow, day 2 will be dedicated for defects. Defects, they have their own life cycle and so on. Day 3 SQL, then we'll do Python. You'll learn how to create your own scripts in Python, and day 5 will be dedicated for test automation. So let's just jump into the main content. Audience today is very diverse. I have to tell you. So majority of the attendees are new to QA, but we have also attendees who are already studying QA and attending boot camps or self-studying. Some of them are already in the market, actively looking for a job, and for those, good luck. And if those 5 days of lessons in any way will help you along the way in that journey, please share that story, and we're going to be very happy to hear that. So we also have few professionals, senior, QA professionals in the audience, and we welcome them as well. Everybody's welcome. We'll try to make the whole each class as useful, as beneficial to every group as possible. So questions, please put it in the chat box, and I'll try to answer each of them at the end. We'll try to keep it interactive as well. And I'll also share my contacts so that you can reach out to me if you guys have any questions or any feedback will be needed. So I want to start from the bigger picture here. So this particular slide is dedicated for those who are completely new to information technologies, who are trying to make their decision to change their career, but they're not sure, or they're looking for a motivation, basically. I'll ask the audience this question. So imagine if you had a job offer today, 2 different job offers with all the other parameters same, but one is working from home and the other one is working from the office, right? And I'm not guessing, but I know for sure that majority will be choosing working from home, because this is the new normal, especially after a pandemic. Pandemic came harsh, but it also taught the companies that people can actually work from home, especially the information technology professionals. They can still do their job, staying home and working from home. And if you're out there looking for a job, chances are that you're either going to get 100% remote job opportunity or hybrid, a couple of days home and a couple of days in the office, great for work-life balance. So this is one of the short-term sort of benefits that you can get right away if you will be in the market when you reach that point. So that's a great factor to take into account, certainly. But apart from that, there's another important factor that I get questions about. That is there an opportunity to grow? Can I actually grow, or am I going to be working as a tester, for the next 10 years? So, and my answer is that there's tons of room for growth for anyone who's willing to, work hard and work consistently towards their goals. When I started working for US companies, I was surprised to see the different positions, variety of different positions that you have at VP level, like vice president levels. You have like assistant vice president, you have vice president, first vice president, and senior vice president, executive vice president, and all those variety of VP levels are achievable. And of course, that's something that you have to wish for and you have to work towards, right? You have to put that goal, and then you have to work hard towards that goal, and that's achievable, I'm telling you. And then salaries at VP level that start from 150,000 a year and about in the United States. So I think those two factors are, one of the big factors that they're taken into account when making a decision to jump into the IT career. But apart from that, there are many other benefits that you can also think of. For example, paid vacations, right? Who doesn't want to go on vacation and then come back and then still get the same salary? So that's a great thing that you can take into account. And also there's health insurance benefits and also 401k. That will be your retirement plan whenever you put $1 and then the company puts another 50 cents or 30 cents additional to what you're keeping or putting as a secure fund for your retirement. That's something that I do. I mean, you can certainly consult that with your accountant, and there is an arguable discussion about whether retirement plans are good or bad, and maybe I'll talk about it in some other session some other day. But I personally use that. Sorry. So those are the benefits of the IT career, and I think you should take that into account whenever you're thinking or evaluating different factors, trying to make a decision. So let's try to answer the next important question here that everybody has, and how difficult it is or how easy it is, right? Now, I want every one of you just to think of any big achievement that you had in your life. It can be in education, like your bachelor's degree, for example. That's a great achievement. Or maybe at work you got a promotion. That's a good achievement. And I'm sure it wasn't easy. I'm pretty sure it was not easy. You had to go through a certain steps. For example, you had to have a vision or a dream, and you had to follow your dream, and you had to set certain goals, and you had to work hard, right? So well, guess what? The same approach, same recipe would work here as well, because you're trying to change your career. You were trying to replace other candidate who worked maybe for 4 years trying to get a bachelor's degree in IT, and then you were trying to compete with that other candidate, and certainly that requires that determination and this approach that you actually used in the past to achieve other achievements in your life. So, but there are two more important ingredients that I think that has to be mentioned here that makes this formula or the approach complete. That would be, first one would be consistency, right? Without consistency, you will not be able to complete, or you worked a couple of hours day one, and then you skipped your lessons for the rest of the weekend. That's certainly not consistency. And the other important factor here is sacrifice. So I'm certainly not talking about any religious sacrifice or anything, but I'm talking about time management here, right? Sacrifice. So you have only 24 hours a day, and I'm sure you've been so busy. And if you're trying to get into a new field, you need some extra time to study. And when I say sacrifice, I mean those little things that eat up your time, like maybe you should turn off or deactivate your subscription for Netflix for a period of time, or maybe stay off the social network for a period of time, like stop watching those Instagram reels and watching the random people doing weird stuff. So you're going to get back to the Instagram or a social network at some point, and then make that big announcement. Hey, I started working for this big company, or doesn't have to be a big brand or anything. So, but still, achieving any goal requires consistency and discipline. So this is, to make sure that we have this correct expectations and correct mindset right from the beginning, right? So, this is really important to mention. Now, another frequently asked question that I get a lot, and I saw that question also in one of the Facebook groups as well, is certification required, or is a license required? So if you were planning to become a doctor or let's say a lawyer, then yes, right? But if you're going to into IT field, no, you don't need to have a certificate. But there's right? So let's take a look into those two job positions that I got recently. So this is a senior QA automation position. I captured this screenshot last week, I think, and this position might still be hot. So if those who are looking for job opportunities, you can still check that on dice.com. So if you look here, I highlighted, and it says ISTQB foundation level certification not required, desirable but not required. So it's desirable. They're still listing that as part of their job description. Here's another one that's more of a manual testing position. And as you can see, they're also listing that as preferred, right? So the answer to this question is desirable, but certainly not required, right? So if you ask me, I say, if you're not in rush, if you're not going to the market and you need to get the job right now, if you're not in rush, then why not? If you can do it, ISTQB certifications or any other certification, but internationally recognized ones though, right? So everybody provides certifications, but I'm really talking about the ones that are internationally recognized, like ISTQB. So, and they teach a lot as well. I mean, just to get the certificate, you have to study a lot independently. You can do that independently or get a coach. And when you get the certificate, when you pass that exam, it's I would say it's not easy as well. Your level of knowledge in QA is in a different level. Basically, you're going to feel that it may not be as practical as boot camps give you, right? Like ours. So it's not as practical, but it's just going to prepare you for the future, and also it's certainly going to increase your chances of passing through those filters of like recruitment filters. So what happens to your resume is that it goes through those recruiters, right? And it has to end up in the screen these days, not the desk, right? In the screen of the QA manager or hiring manager, and they don't have all day, right? So they, for example, I get 10, 15 resumes, and I really have to select. I have to shortlist, and there's no other way, because you can't be spending all your day interviewing people, because you have other tasks as well. And you really hope, believe me, those managers and the recruiters really hope that those candidates end up being good. They end up being as good as described in their resumes, so that they're also off the hook. This job is done. Okay, hiring process done. I mean, hiring process so exhausting, and they really hope that they get the right candidate as soon as possible. So again, desirable but not required. Does it increase your chances of getting through those filters and getting being shortlisted? Yes, and but certainly not required. All right. So now that we clarified some of the basic or frequently asked questions, we have the correct mindset, right? We know what to expect. We know that it's not easy, but you still have to work for it, right? And we can answer the question of what is testing, right? We can jump into the main topic of this whole lesson. So what is testing and how do you test? If you can answer those two questions, half the job is done. You're almost a tester. So what is testing? This is a very, very simplified definition I'm putting here. Testing is checking how well a product works. And I'm sure all of you have done this before, right? You have checked how well a product works. And you were in the supermarket, maybe in a Walmart, buying some product, and you were touching, feeling, and you're using it a little bit maybe. And what exactly was going through your mind? What kind of sequence of events or thoughts or algorithms were going through your mind at that point? You were comparing, right? What were you comparing? You were comparing your expectations versus the reality. And that's how you perform testing, right? This is what testing is about. And those are two important, very important concepts that I want you to keep in mind, which is expectations versus reality. And there's a different way of saying it in actual software testing, but we'll get to that. So now think of the return period you get from Amazon. Why do you think is that? And what exactly you're doing during that return period? You were testing, right? You took that product, you're testing, and then you're comparing your expectation and then with against the reality. And if that worked, if that matched, then they were like, okay, this is good, I'm keeping it. If it didn't match, then what you're doing is, you're gonna write this bad review and you're gonna return, right? Give this 3 stars. So this is how you actually were performing the testing. Now, let's look into this fun, interesting example here. In mid 1990s, there was this famous commercial about a mattress and a glass of wine, and this went viral. And the product, the material that they were using is called Temper, and it was originally created by NASA to protect the astronauts during space travel. And what is specific about this material is that it reduces the motion transfer, right? The transfer of motion is reduced. And this couple here, this is not the actual commercial, but this couple here is testing, right? This is what they're doing. They saw this commercial. Commercial is their expectation, and they're doing similar actions. They're putting this wine, the glass of wine in one corner of the mattress, and then they're jumping on the other corner. So how else could you test that product? For example, this guy decided that he can, hit it with a hammer, and several times. So here's a question to the audience. How would you test it? So imagine you're working for this company who makes the mattresses, and how would you actually test? How, can you come up with some other ways of actually testing the same scenario? So you can put your answers into the chat box, and we call those different scenarios as test cases. So I'll give you guys some couple of minutes so that you guys can type in. Okay. All right, any suggestions? All right, I see some answers here. Use it for some times. Right, use the product for some time. Jump, great. Okay. That's great, yes. And you can also do exactly 2 people together. You can also do a backflip. That's right, you can do a backflip, and you can put a bunch of kids and then they can jump on it, right? Throw some stuff, yes. So what else? Yeah, you can use 2 glasses of wine. You can put 1 glass of wine on top of the other one, and you can roll over. Yeah, you can do all those stuff, and those are all different. Put a bear. Yes, you see. So what we call that in actual testing terminology is stress testing. Now, do what you're doing for a period of time, or increase the pressure on the product to find that breaking point, right? I'm sure the testers of that company, they know the breaking point. They know how close, if you jump too close, probably to that, to the glass of wine, it's going to spill. So, find that breaking point. So, so now that we kind of clarified what is testing, so let's move on to software testing, right? So you have been doing testing as a user all this time, but now you can actually do it professionally and get paid for that. So software testing, right? Instead of the mattress, now we're thinking of the application. Now we're thinking of the application. So here's the definition. Software testing is verifying, right? Those software testers use this cool word called verify instead of check. Software testing is verifying the application does what it is supposed to do by comparing the expected conditions against the actual results and reporting the differences as bugs. Right? You see, I just introduced you to a new concept. It's called bugs. So we're going to talk about bugs in detail tomorrow. So bugs, they have their own life cycle, and bugs, they go back and forth between developers, those engineers who actually type in the code to create the applications, and the testers, right? There's a special relationship between the testers and developers. There's this hate and love. I'm just kidding. They don't hate us. They're just don't realize that they're in love with testers. So expected conditions and actual results. So those are the two important concepts that I want you to keep in mind. Because in the next slide, I will try to trick you. Imagine you're a tester and you got your first job. This is your first day. You're a little nervous, and you came up to your QA manager and asking like, okay, what's my task? What am I going to do? Do you want me to do anything? Right? So, and then your manager also doesn't know what to do, and then like busy and thinking like, okay, let me give you some task. Here's the application. Just gave you this, URL of the application, the address of the web-based application, and saying like, okay, you will be assigned to this project, and then why don't you just think of how are you going to design your test cases? What is going to be, your first step, basically? What will be your first step, and how will you be designing your test cases? So it's a question to you. So think about that. What is your first step? How are you going to handle that situation? All right. Okay, I'm getting some really good answers. Okay. Exactly. That's right. Yes. Happy path. All right. So you're going to look for a happy path as well. All right. That's, yes, that term. That's great. Read other test cases from other people. We do that. And great. So, and this is also similar to some of the interview questions that you might get as well. So usually in the interviews as well, you're given a certain application, and not an application, but a scenario, like why don't you test a pen? Why don't you test a broken calculator, or broken toaster, or whatever? Common mistake that most of the new QA testers make is they jump straight into test case design and thinking of the scenarios that they could do, and so on, without asking questions, right? So good testers, they start from asking questions. And your first step should be learning the product, right? Learn the product first. It's logical, right? So if you know the product better, exactly, yes, I can see some good answers. If you know the product better, then you can test better, right? There are more chances that you're going to find those hidden defects. You're going to find out those problems, and you're going to know what to test actually. Maybe this is an application that already exists and just small feature or part of this application changed. So you don't have to test the whole application, right? So you're going to have to understand the context, right? So your first step here would be to ask for documentation. Thank you. Yes, great answers from the audience. You ask for documentation if the documentation exists, right? And that shows that you know something. So let me actually give you another interesting question here. That's a real interview question. And actually, this is from my personal experience. This is one of the companies, one of the past companies that I worked for. And at that point, I was applying for a manual tester position. And then I got this question. And the interviewer gave me a piece of paper. Those times it used to be more of in person, and a panel interview with the other interviewers are in the room, and then they're giving me the piece of paper with this diagram, not exact diagram though, pretty complex workflow, right? You see that there are a bunch of dependencies and then decision making going on there, different statuses changing, and then different roles, very complex. And look at the question that they're asking me. They're saying, how many test cases would you create? How many test cases would you create to test this workflow or diagram? So pay attention. They're asking how many test cases would you create to test this workflow, right? I looked at this diagram for a moment, and then I quickly realized that they're certainly not expecting any number, right? So that's a tricky question, and they're not expecting you give any specific number here. That's just to check your knowledge of how you handle the testing process, how you actually go through, what is your thinking process, and how professional you are, and so on. So, here's how I answered. So I said, thank you for the question. And as a tester, my reaction, whenever I get a piece of paper with a picture or workflow like this, my first reaction would be, is there more to it? Can you tell me more about this product? Is it a web-based application or is it a desktop-based application? Does this application has a graphical user interface? Or maybe it is just the application programming interface? Is there any other systems that it works with? It is integrated with? Is this a new application that is being created from scratch? Or it's existing application and some part of it is actually changing. Maybe there's like a before and after model here. And is this the latest version of this document or of this picture? Maybe it's outdated, whatever you're giving me. So there are so many missing parts. There are so many missing information before you can actually start designing your test case, let alone the number of test cases. Number of test cases is the last thing that should concern any QA team. Because you can have 1,000 test cases, 500 test cases, but if you're not testing all of the requirements, if your coverage is still below 100%, I just introduced you to another term here, coverage, right? Requirement coverage. So that means, are you actually testing all of the requirements that were in scope, right? Or maybe you're missing some of the requirements. So maybe you created duplicate test cases of 500 and they're just useless test cases. So the count doesn't matter. What matters is the coverage, right? But more importantly, in this situation, is your answer should actually communicate to the interviewer that the good testers learn the product before they give any technical answer, right? You have to learn the product. You have to ask questions. Good testers ask questions, and good testers never trust anything that's anybody's saying. Basically, you have to verify. You have to verify, double check. You have to make sure everything's consistent, right? And then you do not assume. Assumptions also against your religion as a tester, right? If there is such religion. So you do not assume. Testers do not assume. You're not allowed to assume. You have to work based on the facts, based on documentation. All right, so let's now jump into the next step. I think a follow-up question here from the audience who are new to QA world is, okay, how do I learn the product, right? How do I learn the product? So you'll learn the product, you'll learn about the functionalities of the application by reading, surprisingly, right? By reading. So you read the book, you read the requirement document. And there are many different types of requirement documents that you might be given on your first day or during your QA career. They start from business requirement document, and some of them might be actual documents. Some of them might be just information that's electronically saved in tools, in certain tools, test management tools like Jira, for example, like in the form of user stories and so on, right? Certainly don't want to complicate this at the moment, but the purpose of those documents is to describe how the application works, to describe specific features, functionalities of the application under test, right? The application that you're planning to test. And then when you read those documents, now you start understanding the application. You get better, and then sometimes you reach the point that you're actually going to understand the application better than the developers, better than maybe even the users, because the information changed, right? Users requested something, and then it was converted into some documentation by Superman, a guy called business analyst, and that business analyst interpreted in the way they think, and then the information changed along the way, and then but this is the application that's created and users eventually accept, right, to a certain extent. And then you at the end of testing actually become a subject matter expert in testing, and then those users actually reach out to you, and then they involve you in the meetings and ask you to help out understanding the application better, so that they can test as well before they start using, before they accept. So now let's assume that you asked the right question from your QA manager, QA lead, and then they provided you this documentation, functional requirement documentation. And that's what we're going to look into right now. And we're also going to look into a tool called Azure DevOps. And it's a test management tool where you can actually create your test cases. So you don't have to create it in a piece of paper or Microsoft Excel. So with that being said, let's just jump into, let's look into the document first. So this is the application that, let's say, your QA manager gave you. It's a test application. Let's say it's a test environment, right? So test environment, that means that it's an application that you can test without impacting the actual users, right? So here's the typical functional requirement document. Here's a typical functional requirement document. So again, the purpose of this document is to explain you how the product works, right? So let's scroll down. It's version history, table of contents. There's some, list of requirements here. There's this traceability between the business requirements, functional requirements, and then you go into the detailed information about each requirement. Now, as part of our teaching courses, we provide access to those documents to our students so that they can work like in a real work environment, basically, so that they can, gain experience, basically. So let's pick the requirement number one, which is login, and start reading. So as you can see, it says when the user navigates to this URL means the web address here, and a login screen will display. Okay, further, and the login screen will contain the following elements. So we're looking at the username, password, and the password. Here's one interesting thing you want to pay attention to. Entered values will be hidden or masked as those spells. So whenever you're entering your password, it should be hidden. Now, login. Now, this is where it gets interesting, right? So login button. If the user enters the correct username and password combination, login screen will navigate to product screen. This is what we call as a happy path, sort of, right? So correct username, correct password, and the expected result. So let's jump into the tool and then create a test case. So this is the main sort of a task that you will be doing on a daily basis. You will be reading the requirements, regardless of where they are, and convert them into test cases, right? So that's what we're going to do. So this is the one of the tools, right? There are different tools in the market, and Azure DevOps is one of the widely used tools currently. And to create, it has several modules here, and we're not going to stop in most of them, but we're going to focus on creation of a test case. And as you can see, it's very intuitive. So you have this button that's asking you to click on it. So create new test case. So we're just going to go ahead and create new test case, and this pop-up window opens. So your first step would be to give a name to your test case, right? Give a name. So we're just going to name it as login with correct username and password. So some people like to put verify in front of it, check, test, and I try to keep it clean. And I follow the pattern called action plus object. So you just start with the action like login, and then log into what or with what. So you just mentioned login with correct username and password. And there are other parameters that you can work with here, but we're just going to jump into the steps or actions right away, right? To keep it short. So first step, what would be the first step? First step would be we have to open the website, right? We have to go there, and I'm getting some here, go to the website, exactly. So navigate to, let me just go ahead and copy paste. Actually, you know what? We should be copying and pasting from the documentation. That's right. So we're going to copy and paste from here. And the actual result is also described here. Login screen will display. Let's just go and put the actual result. Step 2, enter username, but let's say correct username, right? Enter correct username. What are we expecting? If we go here, there's no much expectation here. As long as the system allows you to enter, right? System allows to enter. Now, enter password, right? Correct. Enter correct password. What's expectation here? Let's look at the document. Entered values should be hidden or masked. Okay, that's our expected result or expected the result. That's right. So let's go to the step 4. Which is the most, I think, critical part. Just click on login button. So what's the expected condition here? I mean, the expected result here, which would be login screen will navigate to product screen. Let's put that. That's it. So your test case is basically complete, right? So we just took the requirement and then converted that requirement into a test case. So we have the test case name, and we have the actions, and we have the expected results. Looks simple. like save and close. Now, your next step would be, I mean, normally you would actually, create all your test cases and then execute, but for demo purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and run the test case for you as well. So we're going to go here and then select. So you're going to go to execute. You see, you can define and then you can execute. We're going to go to the next tab, execute, and then click run for web application. And on the left-hand side here, if you can see this pop-up window open, and we're going to open the actual application also on the right-hand side here, right? I hope you guys all can see. So, and then we'll start executing, right? Okay, great, you can see. So we'll start executing. So the first step, we navigated, that's right, we navigated to this website and we got the login screen, pass. And enter correct username. We're going to get this correct username from here because this is a demo website. All right, so it allows me to enter. Next one is enter the password. Let's enter the password. It is masked. It is masked. It is hidden. That's like a industry standard. Then click on the login. All right, so the next step would be we're going to click on the login. It took me to the product screen. I didn't see any error message or anything out of the ordinary. So, we passed. So we're just going to pass everything. And there's a button called save and close. And we're going to go back. Let me enlarge and go back to this here. Let's just refresh, go back. And you can see the test case status actually now passed. Right? So now, so this was your happy path. Now let's go back to the documentation and look at the next paragraph here, which says, if user enters incorrect username and password combination, system will display an error message. So this is more of a negative path, right? If you enter incorrect username and password combination, system will display an error message. Now, here's a question to the audience. What does it mean incorrect username and password combination, and how many different combinations you could actually come up with? How would you actually test this, right? Because it's not really telling you, is it one combination? Is it two combinations? And how would you test, right? Correct name and wrong password. Here's one answer. Great, right? Correct name and wrong password. You could do that. Wrong name and correct password. Yes, you can flip that. That's it. All right. Yes. How about a blank username and then, correct password or whatever password, or a blank password or populated username. So you see, this is where the tester's knowledge or professionality actually, yes, blank can be considered as incorrect as well. Kicks in, right? So you have to come up with the scenarios now. You have to go beyond the documentation in this particular cases, right? So you have to be able to you need to have this break to test ability. Yeah, make passwords with numbers and symbols. Great suggestions. So let's try to create one of those additional test cases here. So we're going to go ahead and again, click new test case. So, and again, same step, but there's one interesting concept here that's called shared step. So if we go to this particular test case that we created here, right? So let's just go back and then let's create our new test case. Right. So here we're gonna name this test case as login with blank username, for example. Right. This is just one example of the incorrect or invalid scenario. Right. So the first step here again would be navigate to the website. Now, actually, this particular step can be taken from a reusable step. It's a concept called shared step. And if you can create shared steps in most of the test management tools so that it makes your life easier, so that you don't have to recreate and then redo the same step again and again. As you can see, I just took one of the shared steps that I created previously, and then this gives me the step, auto-populates the step basically. So the next step here would be, I'm just going to say leave username as blank and click login button, right? So what's the expected result here? Expected result here, again, we're going to go back to system should display an error message. Now, we don't know what kind of error message, but certainly it should not let you in, right? It should not let you in. So we're going to create our next test case here and run that test case. Let's log out from the application for a moment. Let's put that side by side. Again, this is pass, right? Login is pass, but let's leave this blank. But let's put the correct password here and then click login. You see, you got this username is required message. And we could do the other way around, right? I mean, let's just actually complete our test case first. Our test case also passed as expected. Now, let's explore some of the other options here. And you can leave the password empty as well, right? You click and it says password is required. And what if we just put in 2 incorrect combinations? Then you're gonna get another error message that says username and password do not match any user in the service. So those are different scenarios that that you could potentially test. And this is basically how you actually going to read the requirement documents and then convert them into test cases and then run them. And this is one of the tools. Certainly, there are many other tools. As part of our teaching courses, we also provide access to the test management tools so that students can gain experience. All right. So I got some great messages here. Case no line about password. No line about password. Right. So we didn't. We just left the. That's right. Yes. I mean, you know, you can you can design your test case in different ways. Certainly, you could split it into different steps, and so on. All right, so let's talk about now what makes a good tester, right? Before we move on further, what skills actually make a good tester? One of the important skills that a good tester should possess is rapid learning skills, because you will be given applications frequently, new applications frequently. Sometimes a completely new application that's being, developed from scratch. Sometimes an existing application that you have never seen before, but a small part of the application is being changed. And those are usually called as a change request, right? No tester actually works in one company and that just works in one project. You're going to end up, working in several projects. We hire consultants and then for 1 year, and then we extend them for, 2 years sometimes. And then, but they end up working during this 2 years for maybe, 5 to 10 different projects, and different, with different testing types, basically. So, and each time you're given a new project, you have to have this ability to quickly learn the application, and that's very important. And certainly, you don't have to worry if you don't have that skill at the moment, because that's something that you're going to develop over time. That you will be able to quickly look for the correct material, ask the correct questions, and then understand the application quickly. And then the next important good skill, and this can be actually be your interview question as well. right? This can be your interview question, like what do you think makes you a good tester, right? So you can list up, or why do you think we should hire you? So you could actually list up those skills as your own abilities and behavior. So willingness to continuously improve your testing skills. So you should not stay in one place, and you should always be challenging yourself with new tasks and new types of testing, and maybe work on certifications, so that you're always improving your testing skills, because you're in information technologies fields, and technology changes fast, right? So the next one, curiosity to uncover defects beyond what's obvious. Curiosity to uncover beyond. Why do I say beyond what's obvious? Because the requirement documents or the user stories, another term, or in if you're working in an agile environment, those are not always the whole story, right? So there are certain things that are missing. There are certain things that were not actually described as it is. And as a tester, you need to be able to go beyond. I mean, certainly you can survive by just converting what's written in the requirement document and not going any step further. But I would say good tester has to be able to go beyond, and that's a whole purpose of actually hiring a tester. You shouldn't be just blindly copying and converting, copying and pasting from the requirement document like I did, actually. So further, excellent communication skills. Why, right? Why communication skills are important? That's a big part. It's important because both written and verbally, you will be talking, right? Some people say QA testers don't have to talk, or don't have to talk to users and so on, but you will be talking, right? You will be communicating with the developers. You have to explain your thinking process. You have to, sometimes developers call the testers and then ask them to actually explain the defect, right? We're going to talk about that tomorrow, certainly. And in written, and you also have to write your defect reports in such a way that it gets resolved, that it doesn't come back to you saying, I'm not sure what you meant there, So communication skills are very important. You will be talking to the project manager, business analyst, and the whole team, basically. Next lesson, defects, right? We talked about testing basics today. So defects is a big one. That's a big part of the QA testing industry. And this is one of the reasons why this role actually exists, because of those defects that are found and not found. So I would say, stay tuned, and tomorrow, same time,